What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Cage My IQ. This is the UFC Vegas 70 picks and prediction show by yours truly, Cage. I am looking forward to this fight card. This is a week before we get to the big time UFC 285 pay-per-view, which is headlined by the return of John Jones with his heavyweight debut against Siragan for the UFC heavyweight title. We got a week before we get to that, so we're going to break down this week's UFC Fight Night card, which is headlined by a light heavyweight top 15 battle between Nikita Krylov going up against Ryan Spann. We got 13 fights on this MMA Fight Night card. I'm going to break down every single one of them. But before we get to that, of course, as always, this is Cage My IQ at the best place for MMA content. You can follow and subscribe to us on social media at the social media platforms down below. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitch, and of course, the big one to the right, we're on YouTube. All you got to do to check out any of our video content is go to YouTube, put down Cage My IQ in the search engine, and then hit the subscribe button on the channel. And then please don't forget to hit the notification bell so that whenever I put in and upload any content, you guys get the notification right away. And then please, for this video, smash the like button down below, and please hit us up in the comment section. Give me your thoughts and opinions on my picks and predictions, and give me who you think are going to win on this card. There's a lot of craziness going on. This card was gutted, of course, just like the last one. I'm looking forward to see what happens. Usually these fight night cards are conditioned for up-and-comers or top 15 batters. They're not for, of course, a division title. And I'm liking this one because you've got Krylov and Spann, two guys looking in the right direction. They both have knockout power, but we're going to get into that in the main event. I want to go from the prelims and work my way up. I had a good week last week. Aaron Blanchfield got me that big-time victory. And then, of course, Nazim Sadikov with my bet with him money line and by knockout inside the distance. I cashed in on those. I will be putting my bets in on Friday after the weigh-in, so keep an eye on that on my Twitter, which is Twitter handle at CageIQ. But let's break down with the first fight on the prelims. We got a men's bantamweight matchup between newcomer Jose Johnson going up against Garrett Ontiveros. This is a nice bantamweight battle. Of course, we know Garrett Ontiveros from his debut against David Onama. He looked pretty good early in that, but then, of course, he got finished by Onama in round 2. He actually, in that, took that fight on short notice and then moved up a weight class for it. Now he's making his way back down to bantamweight, where he should be the bigger guy with the better striking. He has more muscle. He has that grappling background, which I think he could be used in this one because Jose Johnson has the height. He's 6 foot, but he has a skinny frame. He has good striking. He likes to use the leg kicks to Garrett Ontiveros, who has boxing base background and mixes in a little bit of leg kicks, but he's all about getting inside the clinch, using those hands, get the fight to the ground, and getting the fight dirty. And I just feel like Jose Johnson's skinny frame is going to harm him in this fight. I got Garrett Ontiveros to win this by decision. I think when you got two guys that can strike, you always have to look at an equalizer in the matchup. And with this one, it's the grappling tendencies of Garrett Ontiveros and the fact that he has a bigger frame and he can outmuscle Jose Johnson. See a lot in the clinch, along the cage, possibly getting Johnson down, just preventing Johnson from using that long height advantage and reach to just point fight Garrett Ontiveros. So in this one, I got Garrett Ontiveros by unanimous decision. And I think with that minus 160 odds, you could see a lot of people betting on him in this matchup. Let's move on to the next fight on the card. We got a women's bantamweight battle between newcomer Haley Cohen going up against Eileen Perez. Eileen Perez had the fight against Stephanie Egger in her debut. Didn't go her way. She wound up getting submitted by Stephanie Egger, which is no bad thing because Stephanie Egger has a better grappling in the background with the submission specialist attitude there. But Eileen Perez comes into this one. She has the power. She has the grappling advantage in this one. She's going to look for submission entries here and there. But the one weakness in her is her cardio. She tends to start out fast, start out strong, and then she kind of dials it down a little bit as the fight keeps going because of the cardio. She puts a lot into starting out the fight fast. But then you got Haley Cohen. She doesn't do anything great. She does everything pretty decently. She has good leg kicks. She has good boxing. She's been developing her body to withstand the pounding of the grapplers. She's good in the clinch. She's had a lot of close fights. She's definitely improved from her debut in 2018 until now, 2023. I could see her doing a lot of the grittiness, a lot of pinning up Eileen Perez against the cage, throwing those elbows, throwing the strikes to the body, to the head, maybe get the fight to the ground. But I think where she's going to want to keep this is at distance where she can throw those leg kicks and then mix up the overhand and then the jab within it. I feel like in a lot of her fights, when she gets the jab going, that's when she's at her best. And she's going to be able to volume Eileen Perez because Perez is striking. She has power, but she doesn't have the accuracy and just the skill. She's more so a grappler that's been developing her striking over time. And that's why I'm going to go with Haley Cohen by decision here. I feel like as long as she avoids those grappling tendencies of Perez on the ground and she keeps the fight standing, even if they're clinching along the fence standing, that's good for Cohen. And I feel like as long as she does that, I have Haley Cohen win this by decision. And just like I said before in the last fight, at minus 155 odds, that is not that bad to look at when you're looking at betting. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we got a very interesting matchup in the lightweight division between Nuri Alves going up against Raphael Alves. I really like Nuri Alves on this card. I might be going with him on bets, depending on how the weigh-ins go, but he is a Turkish knockoff of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Just how he looks, how he fights, the style he is. He's the wrestling beast. He likes to move forward, push his opponents back, take them down. He's a wrestling heavy guy with great top guard, great ground and pound, and he has the cardio to back it up. Compared to a guy like Raphael Alves, he's going to be starting out fast. He's a one-rounder bust type guy. He puts a lot on the first round. He dominates it, and then he just tires out from then on out. His production goes down. Everything goes down from one round on. That's why in the last couple of fights, you've seen him kind of manage his output. He will have low output in the first round, and then he'll try and jack it up in the round 2 and 3 because he knows that if he tries to get out in the first round, if he doesn't get the fight finished, then he's a sit and duck the rest of the fight. So I could see a situation where Alves puts on a strong showing in the first round to keep Alves from getting started with the wrestling. But then I see Nuri Alves kick in afterwards. He gets the wrestling going. I could see Nuri Alves winning by submission round 2 or 3, or at worst by decision. I got him doing it. I just think that his pace, his cardio, and his wrestling are going to be too much for Raphael Alves. if Alves can't get a leave out in the first round. And I think that the pace is just a big thing with it. He could go all day. If this was 5 rounds, he could go do that and then do some more afterwards. I like the future of him if he keeps this up and then he keeps developing the stand-up striking, because that's the one thing that Ali probably lacks a little bit in his fights is the stand-up game. But for some reason, he can easily get the fight to the ground and finish his opponent. So I'm going with Nuri Ali in this one by either late submission finish or by decision. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we got a men's lightweight matchup between a UFC veteran, Joe Selecki, going up against Carl Deaton III. We all know Joe Selecki has that big-time grappling background. He likes to get the fight to the ground as much as possible. He usually averages anywhere from 2 to 3 takedowns a fight. He has good ground and pound. He has good submission game. It's just a stand-up that's been developing over time. And I think he's developed it overall into a pretty solid part of his game where he can use his stand-up to introduce the grappling that he has along the cage. And then we got Carl Deaton. He has a high-level jiu-jitsu submission background. He has 8 or 9 finishes on his career by submission, which is something to note. And then he has pretty good power striking on top of that. So if the fight goes to the ground, Carl Deaton will be tested to go look for those transitions to get on the back of Selecki or look to submit him and find those openings. But I feel like Joe Selecki might look to keep the fight standing, use the cage to his advantage. Like, he still can grapple, but he might not look to take the fight to the ground so much unless he knows that he has full position on Carl Deaton, because then he won't have to worry about those transitions or reversals that will hurt him as well. But I just like the striking of Joe Selecki and the grappling better. I give the edge, of course, in the jiu-jitsu to Carl Deaton, but I feel like it might not play a big factor in this fight. I see Joe Selecki win this one by decision in this fight. I just think he's going to out-volume, out-position, and out-grapple Carl Deaton. I'm going to stay away from any bets with Joe Selecki because I do not like that minus 550 odds there. I think it's huge, especially for a fight like this. I'm going to stay away from it, but I do think that Joe Selecki is going to be the victor by decision in this matchup. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we got a flyweight battle between Charles Johnson taking this fight on short notice against Odie Osborne. This is going to be one of the most exciting fights on the card, in my opinion. You got Odie Osborne, who likes to use both his legs and his hands to be explosive striker. He's knocked people out both ways. He likes to push forward. He is very aggressive, sometimes to his own detriment in times. You see him going guns blazing, and it's either he's going to knock you out or you're going to knock him out. He's been finished in his last fight against Tyson Nam. That was probably one of the cases where he started out really well, but he put himself in a bad situation, and then he got knocked out. He has really good leg kicks, and then even the striking, he has knockout power. But the one knock on Odie Osborne is he likes to keep his hands down within exchanges, and it usually costs him fights because of it. And then he's going up against a guy who's a taller fighter with a bigger reach in Charles Johnson, who just so happens to have knockout power as well. We've seen that. Of course, in his debut, he got dominated by Muhammad Mokaev, but he withstood any submission entry, and he was able to fight out of them. He's one of the best at getting out of grappling exchanges. He did get taken down 8-9 times, but he was able to take the fight to decision, and then he did pop Mokaev once. And then he comes into his next fight. He gets the controversial victory in that one, but he still landed over 100 strikes. And then in his last fight, he came in against a returning, of course, fighter a month ago, and he got the first round finish. He just is a dynamic fighter who can hit you from different angles, and then if you just leave yourself open in the face, he's going to knock you out and make you pay for it. And that's why I got Charles Johnson beating Odie Osborne by round 2 knockout. I think Odie's the faster starter in his fights. He's going to get his licks in early, but I just like Charles Johnson to get going the second half of round 1. I think the fight goes into round 2, and that's when he catches Odie Osborne with his hands down with an overhand strike, puts him down, and then he gets the second round finish by knockout. This might be one of my plays here, depending on how the inside the distance odds goes coming weigh-in day. But for right now, I'm going Charles Johnson by round 2 knockout, and I'm going to wait to see how the bet odds are for finish inside the distance and money line. So keep an eye on that, just like with the other ones on my Twitter page. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we got Jordan Levitt going up against Victor Martinez. As we know, the Monkey King is a big-time grappling artist. He looks to wrestle you down, get the fight to the ground with his jiu-jitsu, and then look for submission entries or ground and pound. His one weakness is his striking. He's very awkward with the stand-up game. He doesn't know how to put combinations together well. It's very slow. It's very shown to the other fighters. You know it's coming before the EV is going to be coming because of how slow that he transitions to the striking game. And then you got his opponent, Victor Martinez, is very quick. He has fast striking. He knows how to put combinations together. He has movement. He looks like a decent prospect, but it all depends on how well he can stuff the takedowns and defend against Jordan Levitt just trying to slatch up onto him, get him on the cage, get him down, and look for those submission entries. If the fight can stay standing for a long time, it's going to benefit Victor Martinez. But if the fight goes to the ground, you got to go with Jordan Levitt because of his transitions on the ground and the fact that he can limit the striking output of Victor Martinez here. I'm going to go with Jordan Levitt here at this moment. I could change it depending on how Friday goes, how the weigh-ins, how each guy's body looks, and everything, and any research that I add on to later on. But for right now, I'm going with Jordan Levitt by decision here. I feel like he's going to be able to take down Martinez, control him on the mat, transition into guard or even side guard, throw those elbows, throw the ground and pound, do the ground and pound volume, and then look for those submissions. I think Victor Martinez will be able to fight off a finish. But at the end of the day, if Victor Martinez can't get his stand-up going, then it's going to be hard for him to get the victory in this matchup on UFC Vegas 70. So I'm going with Jordan Levitt at the moment. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we got a women's flyweight matchup between Gabriella Fernandez going up against Jasmine Jasudavicius. It's crazy to think that a newcomer like Fernandez is coming in as the minus 125 favorite, whereas Jasmine is coming in the plus 100 underdog, considering she has over 4 or 5 UFC fights already under her belt against good competition. Jasmine has a very overall decent game. She has very good grappling, good jiu-jitsu, and then she's been mixing in like improving striking of late. It's usually low volume, predicated on getting the fight into the clinch with the elbows and knees, and then trying to get the fight to the ground and use her very good ground and pound to get the edge in fights. But then you got Gabriella Fernandez. She's explosive. She has power. She has great grappling, just like Jasmine. And I think the difference maker in this is just the fact that Gabriella is more explosive with what she does. She can knock you out. She can submit you. She's going to use that power, whereas Jasmine is more technique and grit than anything else. And that's why I'm going with Gabriella Fernandez inside the distance. I think there's very sneaky chance that Gabriella Fernandez can get the sub early in the second round or late in the fight in the third round, depending on how she goes. I think she can wear on Jasmine and then just slap on the rear naked choke if she finds the opening. I just love the explosion that comes out of her. A lot of people are going to go with Jasmine because of the experience and the competition that she's fought, but there's no doubt in the explosiveness of Gabriella when she's throwing a strike or when she's getting in the clinch and she's trying to gain advantage over you. And I think that's going to benefit her in this fight. And I like the minus 125 odds on her. I'm hoping that coming Friday that it becomes more of an even fight and maybe people will start to jack up on Jasmine to make the odds for Gabriella's money line even better, close to even. Because if that happens, I'm easily going with the money line bet on Gabriella Fernandez. But I think this is a good fight. Maybe you look at her and then maybe you look at the over 1.5 rounds on this one, because I feel like this could be finished early, the late second or late in the fight in the third. But I have a good feeling that it might go past the 1.5 rounds mark. So definitely look to go with the over 1.5 rounds on this fight. And then I lean towards Gabriella Fernandez in this battle. Moving on to the next fight on the card. We got a men's lightweight battle between Eric the Ghost Pepper Gonzalez going up against newcomer Trevor Peak. I really like this battle. Eric Gonzalez is a fighter. He's primarily a striker, knockout artist. He likes to push the pace forward, throw haymakers. He likes to get into those barnstorming type fights where you not get knocked out or you knock out your opponent. He's been tested. He's been finished in the last 2 fights, but he's also stunned his opponents in those fights and then just has had bad luck in getting torched right back later on because he didn't get the finish. But he's going up against a fighter on Trevor Peak. He has a lot of first-round finishes in his career. He is a knockout artist. I like his striking. But then the equalizer here, like I said, is he has the wrestling background to back it up. And I think that's something that could come into play in this fight where they're trading shots at each other. And I even favor Peak striking just a bit over Gonzalez. But then he ducks and then he goes for the double hand takedown and looks to use that to his advantage, takes the fight down, and then looks to ground and pound Eric Gonzalez, because that's been something I feel like Gonzalez has been weak with, is the takedown defense. Because he's so used to standing and trading. And I could see Trevor Peak using that to his advantage. I don't see this fight going the distance at all. I think this is an inside the distance type fight. Depending on who gets it, I'm favoring Trevor Peak because of the knockout power and then the equalizer in his wrestling game. I think he's going to look to get to the ground if the striking doesn't work well with him in a bar fight with Eric Gonzalez. And Eric Gonzalez has the luck with the exchanges because of a little bit bigger reach advantage. But at the end of the day, I think the newcomer Trevor Peak gets the win. I'm either going round 2 knockout or round 3 submission. I feel like the submission is a sneaky play here the longer the fight goes, because I think that Eric Gonzalez could get tired out from all the haymakers that he's going to throw, and Trevor Peak might be more methodical with how he throws his shots, and then of course looking to look for takedowns to neutralize the striking game of Eric Gonzalez. So I'm going with Trevor Peak inside the distance in this one. If it's either going to be knockout and submission, it depends on what round he can get Eric Gonzalez out in this fight. But once again, my pick is Trevor Peak. Moving on to the next fight on here, we got a welterweight battle between Johan Lindezi going up against Mike Malott. I was very surprised at the odds here that Mike Malott was a minus 220 favorite to where Johan Lindezi is plus 180 underdog. I get it. Mike Malott has had wins, and Johan lost his debut against Gabe Green. But I feel like he has the skills to compete with Mike Malott, and I thought maybe this would have been a minus 150, plus 150 type odds here in the favor of Mike Malott. Of course, Johan Lindezi has the kickboxing background. He has a little bit of Muay Thai. He is more of like a singular striker with his hands. He has very quick leg kicks that he throws to the calf and to the body, and then he mixes in the jab and the hook in between it. But all of his shots are more singular instead of combinations. If any combination that he's thrown, it's usually the calf kick, which is very quickly responded with the hook by him. But other than that, he's more about the singular shot, whereas Mike Malott is more of a combination thrower. He likes to come off the counters. He has good grappling. Like in a lot of his fights, you're stun an opponent with a counter shot and then look to jump on top of them and finish them with a submission. That's a nice wrinkle in his game that I've seen in the last 2-3 fights where he's gotten finishes like that. And that's why I'm leaning towards him in this fight. I do really like Johan Lindezi. I just feel like he has to start incorporating combinations into his fights for me to want to start going his range in UFC caliber fights. He can win those fights on the regional scene by being a singular striker that moves around his opponent's weak side. But once you get to the UFC, it's going to be hard for you to compete against these types of fighters and not be able to put out high volume combinations to outweigh your opponents unless you get the finish. But I got Mike Malott in this one. I think he's going to out volume Lindezi, even with the counter game. I think he's going to throw 2 to 3 strikes to the one Lindezi off the counter, and I could see him looking to grapple with Lindezi, to limit anything that he does along the cage, try and get the back of him and look for submission. But for right now, I'm going to go with Mike Malott by decision. I think maybe I'll put a bet on him to win by sub as like a secondary bet because I think there's a chance that could happen, but it's more going to be a lesser bet just to place on there because I know how Mike Malott fights off the counters, and then he usually looks to show off a bit by going for the finish via sub after stunning his opponent off of a counter shot. But my main pick here is Mike Malott to win this one by decision, but just know that he could take an early finish by sub. Moving on to the next fight, we got a women's flyweight battle between Tatiana Suarez, returning from a 3-year hiatus, going up against Montana de la Rosa. The first thought here is, geez, even with the 3-year absence, Suarez is still a huge minus 750 favorite, the biggest favorite on the card, mainly because of the way that she fights. She's all about the ground game. She is pretty okay with her stand-up, but once she gets the fight to the ground, she is very dominant in that. She can pull you to the ground. She has awesome top guard, one of the best ground and pounds in the women's division. And then she knows how to transition well. She usually, once she gets on top of you, there's no getting her off. And she showed that with victories in the past, especially against Carla Esparza, who is a former 2-time champ in the division. She's going up against Montana de la Rosa, who has looked decently in the UFC career. She's pretty good at everything. She's a good grappler, good submission artist, a good striker. She's just not great at any one spot. I think if there's anything that she's probably the best at, it's the submission game, in my opinion. And that's why she's probably a plus 540 heavy underdog here. I'm going with Tatiana Suarez. I think she might come out a little bit rusty, and that's where De La Rosa can kind of get on the scorecards early and try and sway the judges. But I think once she gets going, she's going to take down De La Rosa, control her on the mat, beat her with ground and pound. And if she doesn't get the ground and pound finish in round 2 or 3, I got her winning by unanimous decision victory. I think right now I'm going to go with a decision victory here until I see more of her break off the rust. But I think she dominates the fight after like the 2-3 minute mark of the first round when she gets her feet wet, and then she gets the fight to the ground. I could play her in DraftKings if the price is right to use her because of the chances of ground game control time and the strikes she can land in the ground and pound position. But I'm staying away from her betting wise because that minus 750 mark is just too high to go with. And even if you try and go by decision or go inside the distance, you're still not getting great odds on the fight. So I'm staying away from any bets on her, but I'm picking her to win easily against Montana De La Rosa. Moving on to the next fight on the card. We're almost to the end. We got a heavyweight slobber knocker between Augustus Sakai going up against Dante Mays. These two guys, it's an even bet fight odds. They're both minus 110. They both bring a different skill to the table on this matchup. Of course, you got Dante Mays, who's the boxing threat here. He has good hands, good movement, knockout power. He's going to come in with the height and reach advantage, but he is not great against the grapplers. He tends to get taken down, controlled, thrown down, but he does have the equalizer in that knockout power. If he catches you with one easy shot, you're going to go down because of the quickness of his hands. But then you got Augustus Sakai. He has that Muay Thai background where he's good in the clinch. He has good leg kicks. I think the leg kicks are going to play a factor in this fight. He's going to plan to use them early and often to try and slow down Mays. He's going to throw him at the calf, throw him at the body, but he has to keep moving in this fight, or at least clinch up often, because if he's tended to lately, since he's on a 4-fight losing streak, leave his face open, and he's been knocked out quite a bit because of it, because he doesn't keep the movement going at a full-time pace. Sometimes he gets complacent, and then he stands there and looks to throw those clinch game from far away, and then he gets caught in the midst of it, and he gets put to the mat there. So it's going to be kind of a game of a chess between the two of these guys, because you're going to have Sakai who's going to look to move around through the leg kicks and then look to shoot early, but then you're going to have Dante Mays look to time his striking to catch him at the right times. I don't think he's going to look to just throw guns blazing, but you're going to have Mays kind of take his shots when he needs to, look at stuff the takedowns, and then get up in the volume game of this fight. I don't think this fight goes the distance. I feel like it's either you got Sakai, who maybe could get a submission on Mays, or you got Mays, who is going to finish Sakai early. I'm going to go with Dante Mays by first round knockout here. I'm going to go with just the what's happened recently in Sakai's fights. He's been finished in quite a bit. He tends to get knocked down in the fights, and I feel like right now he has a glass chin right now. Like if he gets touched, he's going to go down. So I'm going to go with Dante Mays by first round knockout here. But I wouldn't be surprised if Augustus Sakai came in here, got into the clinch, taken down Mays, and then just controlled him for 3 rounds in this fight and squeaked out of the decision victory over Mays. I wouldn't be surprised if he were able to do it, but I'm going with Dante Mays by first round knockout, and I'm likely going to bet that knockout on Mays come Friday when the odds come in and then the weigh-ins are done. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we got a men's middleweight battle between Brandon Allen versus Andre Muniz. Of course, you got Andre Muniz, who recently just broke into the top 15. He is a submission and grappling artist. He's really good with getting the fight down with his wrestling and then looking to take the back of his opponents and then submit them. He's one of the best black belts in not just the division, but in all of UFC. He just finds a way to get the fight down to his game and then get the finish in his fights. And he's showcased in the past couple fights winning by submission. But then you got Brendan Allen, who is a solid striker. He has knockout power. He's very underrated in that, but he also has underrated wrestling. But the one thing that tends to get him in fights is he tends to blitz forward a little bit too much, and then he gets caught by his opponents, and then he gets knocked down or stunned. And I have a feeling maybe that continues. He does that. Andre Muniz catches him, stuns him, takes the back of him, pulls him down, and then gets the submission here. My bet on this one is Andre Muniz by round 2 submission. I could see him doing it in round 1, but I do like Brendan Allen enough to where I feel like he truly is the better striker in this matchup, and I feel like that's going to play a factor in this going into round 2. But I feel like Brendan Allen's the type of guy, is more, I feel like, the gatekeeper where when you feel like he's getting a trend started and he's getting a win streak started and he's about to break into the top 15, he has these fights where he just sets himself back, and it's because of the blitz forward that he does at times when he's winning fights. He gets too happy, blitzes in, and then he gets caught with something that causes him to get finished. So I'm going Andre Muniz doing this by round 2 submission. I think after this fight, as long as Andre Muniz wins, we got to talk about getting him a top 10 matchup here, because this guy has been dominant in his fights, and he just wins the way that he does. He takes the fight into his warehouse, into his type of fight, and he just dominates doing it. And if he can do this again and make this another submission victory, there's no doubt he's going to get a big-time matchup the next card that he's been booked on. But in this one, Andre Muniz by decision, and I most certainly will more than likely use him in my DraftKings lineup this Saturday. Moving on to the main event, Ethan, we are finally here. We got a light heavyweight battle, 5 rounds between Ryan Spann versus Nikita Krylov. This is going to be a battle here. First, you got Ryan Spann. This guy has very underrated grappling and jiu-jitsu game. He has knockout power. He has the nickname Superman because of that power with that hand you saw in the past. But a couple fights, he just knocked out Dominic Reyes with one shot to the side of the head, put him down. He got the knockout. He got the victory. Before that, he's been on a tear since, like, us thinking that he was on the fringe of getting cut because of the knockout losses that he was put into. I believe it was 3 out of 4 fights that he was losing at the time. But now he's on a 3-fight win streak. He looks stronger than ever. It looks like he's improved his just tendencies. He goes in there. He knows when to grapple. He knows when the hand strike. He has that capability of putting the fight into his own hands. He has the equalizer with that overhand shot. But then you got Nikita Krylov on the other hand. He has knockout power. He has the speed. He has the explosiveness early. He starts out fights very quickly. Almost all of his fights were ended in the first round until recently. But then the one big fight that puts you into question is the fight against Paul Craig, where he was winning that fight. He was laying those shots. He had Paul Craig on the ground, but then he made the decision to throw into the clinch. He got his hand caught, and then he was submitted via triangle by Paul Craig, and started to showcase his bad IQ decision making in fights. But then he bounced back. He beat Augustus in a fight that Augustus probably shouldn't have been fighting in because he should have retired beforehand. He got the finish there. And now he's fighting a guy in Ryan Spann where it's a guy that can match the explosiveness of Krylov, but it's more of a like a thinker in the sense that he's going to let Krylov make a bad mistake and then he's going to capitalize on this. A lot of people are looking for this to be a knockout finish for either one of them, but a very underrated part of this matchup that I think could be the deterrence of the fight that determines who wins is the grappling of Ryan Spann here. I like the fact that he's plus 135 odds. I think that's a bargain for him. I'm going to be using him likely in DraftKings, but when you look at him and you look at what Krylov has done to lose fights, which is that the IQ jumping into the clinch, I think that could play a factor in this one. So I might think there's a chance that Brian Spann could win this fight by submission. I wouldn't put it upon himself to do that. It's a good move for him to look into submission, considering that Krylov tends to overthrow his reach at times, and then you can easily grab him, pull him down, and then lock him into a submission entry. But like it could also be knockout too, because of course I don't think Krylov has fought somebody with the power that Ryan Spann has, truly, and has felt the power of it. I could be wrong with some of his bones, but Ryan Spann is one of the hardest hitters in the light heavyweight division, and he didn't use it the right way until recently. Now he's finally developing his true self, and he's showcasing why he's in the top 15 right now. And I'm liking seeing everything coming from. He's starting to put everything together, and that's why I'm going with Ryan Spann to pull off the upset here by defeating Nikita Krylov by round 3 submission via a rear naked choke. I think he gets it done. Another factor to point into this is after Nikita Krylov gets that explosive first round started, he usually throws a lot at the kitchen sink at you. He tends to tire out. His cardio tends to go down in fights, and then he looks to slow down, say round 2, and then pick it up again towards the end of the round, and then round 3. I don't think he's going to be able to afford to do that against Ryan Spann. I think Ryan Spann's going to have the better cardio, the better grappling. I'm still going to give the striking advantage to Krylov, but I'm going to give the knockout advantage to Spann. But I think Spann gets it done round 3. I think he gets him down, and then he submits him in the fight. So I'm going with Ryan Spann, round 3, submission via rear naked choke. And I might be playing that in as one of my bets come forward. So definitely look into that. Like I said, the other ones on Friday after weigh-ins. That'll wrap things up with today's picks and predictions for UFC Vegas 70, headlined by Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann. You can find all my content on YouTube at Cage My IQ, and I'm also on Twitter at Cage IQ. So give my Twitter handle a follow. I post all my content on there, and any news in MMA and wrestling world. I got a few interviews lined up in the next week or two, so definitely check out any of that. But please, like I said before, give me a follow on YouTube. Tell everybody about my YouTube page. Just hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and smash the like button down below, and hit us up in the comment section. I don't get everybody's opinions on this fight card, because this is one of those unique fight cards that comes around that you don't think is going to do great, but you get a lot of finishes on this card and a lot of people talking about it because of that. So once again, check everything out. Hit me up in the comment section to the right of your opinions. I want to know what are your picks and predictions for this Saturday are compared to mine. And keep an eye out on Friday for my betting card for this card. I did really good on last week's betting card. I think I only had 2 misses out of my 6 bets. So I was on the positive for that one. I'm heading in the right direction here after being off for a couple weeks. And I'm looking to keep that train going. So keep an eye on everything on Cage My IQ. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time for another edition of Cage My IQ. See you guys later.